Good morning. I call to order the Planning Commission meeting of September 5, 2024 at 9 a.m. We are meeting at 400 County Center Board Chambers, as well as remotely via Zoom. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
to a software.
I'm sure we all remember the flag that was there. Madam Clerk, please proceed with roll call.
Commissioner Gupta,
Here.
Commissioner Hampton,
Here.
Commissioner Serrano Juan.
Here.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Here.
Chair Ketchum.
Here.
Thank you, Chair. You have a quorum. And staff is represented by Monowitz, Fox, and Segura. Thank you.
We will now open public comment for items not on the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will first call upon members in chambers, followed by speakers on Zoom. For in-person comments, the speaker slips are located in the ante room. On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature or *9 if you're calling by phone. And at this time, Madam Chair, we have no comment. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now close public comment for items not on the regular agenda. And moving on to the consent agenda, do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
That was a motion by Commissioner Hanson and a second by Commissioner Ramirez. Commissioner Gupta,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
Aye.
Commissioner Serrano Juan.
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you. We will now move on to the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, please introduce item 2.
Owner, Uccelli Andrew Anthony Trust. Applicant Steve Kelland Architects. File number PLN 2023-00055. Location 0 Sonora Avenue, El Granada. And your project planner is Sonor Agarwal.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners, member of the public and staff. My name is Sonal Agrawal, and I will be presenting item number 2 for a new single-family home on the intersection of Sonora Avenue and Columbus Street. So the project before you is a consideration of a non-conforming use permit, coastal development permit, and design review permit to allow construction of a new 1,828 square feet, 2-story single-family residence with an attached 597 square feet ADU. The project is appealable to the Coastal Commission due to undergrounding of Deer Creek at this location. The non-conforming use permit is required to allow development of a 32.5 feet wide lot, where 60 feet is the minimum required width for a corner lot in S17 zoning district, and to allow 1 covered parking space where 2 covered spaces are required by the code. So as you can see on this slide, the site is located on a cornered lot. It is located on the intersection of Sonora Avenue and Columbus Street. The lot size is 3,986 square feet. It's a legal non-conforming lot, and a COC-A was recorded under PLN 2021-00228. Zoning of the site is R1 S17 DRCD. So why a use permit is required? So use permit is required anytime a lot with less than 35 feet wide width is developed, which is why a use permit is required in this case. It is not because of the lot size, but only because of lot width. And a use permit is also required here because they're proposing to have 1 covered space where 2 covered spaces are required. Next slide. So here on this site plan, you can see it's a narrow lot, but the project complies with all the required setbacks, which is 20 feet to the front, 10 to the exterior side, 5 to the interior side, and 20 feet to the rear. Here's the first floor of the project. It consists of one car covered garage, which meets the internal clear dimensions. And on the first floor, there will be one bedroom and an ADU at the back. Second floor will have one master bedroom, kitchen, and living room. So the project was heard at two design review meetings. First one was on July 13, 2023, and the second one was on July 11, 2024. At the July 13, 2023 meeting, the committee asked for visual and bridge line articulation. The applicant was also asking for setback variance at that time. In the revised proposal, the applicant revised the proposal to remove the setback variance, and it's now meeting all the required setback. And they lowered the ridge line by approximately 1 foot 6 inches and also introduced some ridge line articulation. So at the July 11, 2024 meeting, the CDRC reviewed the revised proposal and they recommended approval. As you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, the project will have more of gray shades, white trim and wooden railings and a gray shade roof. Here is the front elevation of the project facing from Columbus Street. Here's the rear elevation and the two side elevations. So the project complies with general plan, local coastal plan, zoning regulation, and design review regulations. And staff was able to make findings for coastal development permit, design review permit, and non-conforming use permit. As you can see in this chart on the right-hand side, the project complies with all the components apart from minimum required parking space and minimum required average lot width, which is 60 feet for corner lot, and the minimum lot size, but the use permit is not being sought for lot size. It is only being sought for required number of parking spaces and lot width. Next slide. So staff received some public comments during the before the CDRC meeting, and one of the comment was regarding having more ridgeline articulation, and there was a suggestion made by one of the community members to have hip roof instead of gable roof. This was considered by the CDRC, and they have added. We have added that as a suggestion in the staff report, but it was not required for the CDRC approval. So CDRC was okay with the design, with having it added as a suggestion. And the project is exempt from CEQA based on section 15303 class 3A relating to construction of a new single family residence in an urban residential zone. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the coastal development permit, design review permit, non-conforming use permit for file number PLN 2023-00055, subject to attached findings and attachment A in the staff report. That concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
No questions.
Good presentation, Ms. Agarwal. So this is considered lot 15 or 16?
16, not 16.
Lot 16. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. So how does this design compare to the neighboring homes in the area? Has it, have neighbors commented on that?
Yeah, there were comments received from a neighbor across the street, and then there were some issues raised regarding some trees that were planted and which will be blocking intersection viewpoints. But there was a particular tree which was thought to be blocking the intersection view, which was removed from the proposal. And then regarding the ridgeline articulation, there were comments made for that, but those were taken care of by revising the ridgeline. And at the CDRC meeting, the committee was able to find findings for the house being in harmony with other neighboring properties.
And are the homes in the neighborhood, are they relatively new or have they been around?
So there is a home which is being constructed on the right-hand side by the same owner, I believe it's. And there is a vacant lot at the back, but there are other homes which are across the street. So they're of the similar characteristic, but there is a new home being constructed, currently being under construction.
And this is for the purpose of this home is to be used by the owner or for rental purposes?
Yeah, sorry. I'll defer this question to the applicant when they have the
Applicant
chance to
later,
speak on it.
okay, that's fine. Okay. So one of the things that I saw in the conditions of approval, which I was not clear about, was it's actually the last thing, last condition, number 40, which said for the ADU, it said that it has 1 hour fire separation from the main house. I'm not sure what it
So I
means.
believe you're talking about the wall which is in between the home and the ADU. So fire typically requires a fire rating of the wall to be 1 hour or greater. That's a requirement by fire. Like in case of any fire, the wall can sustain or it can break the fire from the rest of the home for approximately 1. That's my understanding of that condition, but that is something that fire requires for a lot of projects.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So that is my only remaining question for the applicant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a question that I don't know, maybe the director could answer, but anyway, so the geotech report shows 2 borings on each of 4 adjacent lots at this corner. And something about that they're all planned to be, have construction, but 2 of them have Deer Creek, the culvert running through the middle. So how would that work? Are you allowed to build something on top of a culvert? I wouldn't think
As
so.
long as it's properly engineered,
Oh, really?
yes.
Well, we can come up again with the applicant if you would like, but I just,
Yeah, I don't have more to add on that, but perhaps the applicant and their technical team can address
Okay.
that.
thank you. So does the applicant wish to speak? You have 15 minutes for the whole team.
Yes, good morning. Steve Kellen, I'm the project architect. Thank you to staff for your very detailed and full explanation. I just want to talk a little bit about the process we went through. This is a challenge given that it's substandard for width. So, when we first started, we were looking at a design, working with staff. In the original proposal, we had the 2-car garage, to meet the parking requirement. That would have, required a setback exception, for that garage. So when we went to the CDRC, it was their recommendation that in lieu of setback exception, we consider, the parking exception so that we could create the 1-car garage and effectively meet, all of the other design criteria for the zoning. So that's how we ended up, with the proposal in front of you for the exception request, for parking. Also at the first CDRC meeting, we went through that, so we made those revisions. They had other comments related to, Commissioner, you had questions about the architecture related, to the rest of the surrounding homes. That was part of their comments, in addition to the height. So from the first submittal to the revised proposal that was just recommended for approval by the CDRC, we lowered the height. We changed the project to have a one-car garage. We also changed the architecture. They had some comments about, was the house too similar to the new home that is being proposed next door? And also taking a look at the rest of the neighborhood. So we also adjusted the architecture of the home second proposal in this revision to change, some of the stylistic components. We changed, exterior colors. We adjusted some of the materials and railings and things. And they found that to be acceptable. It differentiated itself, but also was respectful to, some of the other existing homes, in the neighborhood. And then a couple things I just wanted to clarify or discuss was in the overall height, we actually reduced the overall height by 1'10". I think in the staff report it said 1'6". Not that that matters a lot, but just to be specific. And then relative to the roof form, the gable versus the hip roof form, which staff brought up, that was brought up by the neighbor across the street who we worked with in a lot of detail on this project and the one next door about removing trees, trying to do, everything we could, with respect to their existing home and view. And that was brought up and discussed at the CDRC meeting, but as I said there, the style of this proposed home is kind of more kind of coastal farmhouse. So as I explained to the CDRC, the hip to roof form would not be consistent with that architectural style. And the other thing I explained to them was because of the angle, I think the neighbor was trying to think about massing and potential view, but as I explained to the CDRC, adjusting from a gable to a hip form wasn't going to effectively make any difference related to that because of the home that was next door. Its second story is closer to the front property line. This one was further back, so it really wasn't going to make much of a difference. But I feel strongly about the architectural style that wasn't going to be consistent. And the CDRC kind of, I think, threw that in at the end of the meeting, which came to you in this report. And then I guess a couple other things you had asked. The project will be for sale, but it's intended, as a family home. So that's kind of the way it was set up. The ADU was purposeful for having, different family units that might, live in. And then, as staff mentioned, the ADU, according to the building code, is required to have that 1 hour fire separation. So, I think that covers most of the things that I wanted to add. Certainly available for any other questions. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add to my question about the other lots where the culvert is, right? Indeed, whether you
Sure.
would are you planning to build on those?
Sure. So there is an existing underground. It doesn't affect this lot. I believe, to your question about why it was in the soils report, is that the soils engineer did an analysis of the contiguous lots. So it was brought up, the soils report is covering, more than this lot, but it does not apply to this lot. It doesn't cross it. It's not near it. It runs diagonally through the adjacent.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just, it brought up the concept and, because we were looking at this to see if the creek did run under this house and it doesn't, so fine. But I just wondered, what is the same owner of these 4 lots? Is that the plan? And how would that work when you need to replace the owner?
Well,
When you need to replace the culvert, how does that work if it's under the house?
well, I believe it's been inspected and it is an existing underground structure. And as planning staff had mentioned, so long as it is, the condition is appropriate, you are allowed to build near it. So I guess there aren't necessarily similar restrictions to an open creek, where you would be required to have a creek setback.
Okay, this is more my curiosity than actually related to this. So do commissioners have questions for the applicant?
Yes.
I can, yeah.
You want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Does the owner own the lot right next to it, to the right-hand side on, when you look at it from Sonora Avenue? I'm looking at, yeah,
I don't know if there's, I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
I'm looking at this thing right here. So,
Okay, so on the, if you're
So-
looking face on the narrow side.
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
hold on.
Angela, could you bring up the aerial
Yeah,
photo,
can you-
please, from the presentation?
That one, yeah. So does the owner also own the lot right next to it? As you're looking
Yes,
at,
and
okay.
that, there's a project that's already been approved for.
Mm. Did you guys ever give a consideration of merging the lots? Because I'm looking at, when we're looking at it here, at 114, and it looks like it's the exact same situation where if you merge those two, would be about the same size as 114, where there's one house sitting on that.
They were both, I mean, these were legal, this one was a legal non-conforming lot already. That, you know, had a COC.
No, I understand that, but being that that lot is so small and we're encouraging lot mergers in general, wondering if you guys gave any consideration, because I'm looking at the 114 and it looks like it would have been, you know, the ideal situation to merge those two and make it exactly like 114.
Just have to take the time. Tony and Shelley, I am the owner, or with different groups and different lots. First of all, lot 114 is a combination of 3 other lots that were merged at one point. You can tell from looking at that, that is a massive lot. Okay, so I'd have to stop and think right now that it's probably 10,000 square or 10,000 square feet. So it's not your single family home style. Both of these lots, as Steve said, had certificates of compliance. Kind of feel compelled to answer that, but sometimes you're talking about trying to get as much housing as possible. And then we're talking about, we want to create a 10,000 square foot lot to put a single house on, which seems kind of counterproductive, intuitive to, I mean, you can build houses on lots now with some of these new SB9s and things as such, on as little as 700 square feet, but we're talking about that we want to merge 2 totally good separate lots into one for some purpose. So I didn't think that that made sense. And so these lots have been separate for 100 years. And so I decided that it made no sense to keep them separate and look to build singular homes to create 2 homes versus 1 home on a huge lot of one. So that was what basically led to where we are now. And again, lot 15 was approved in both planning and building when looking to start construction. So that's kind of the background on this. Again, lot 114, which we're looking at there, I think it was about 20 years ago or 25 years ago, the then existing owner merged those. He was trying to work with, lot 114 is commercial zone. This is a very tricky block. Lot 114 you see there is commercial. The lot right above it that you see next to it is also commercial. The next 2 lots, which are in question here, are single family home. So I talked with the county ahead of time years ago, trying to figure out if we could deal with those different zoning requirements to try and maximize housing, or some different ideas we could do. And they were very adamant that 114 and a lot above it needed to stay commercial. So that's gonna be tricky at times down the road. That's why I'm working these 2 lots first, and then we're gonna get back to those other 2 lots later, as well as the lot. So I hope that answers your question, or if I.
You know, it does. That's fine. It triggers another question for me. So is this a commercial residential zone?
No, you have, what you have is a residential district that borders up against the coastside commercials.
Okay.
So to help you even get the visual, lot 114 does have a house on it, but it's a non-conforming house. So I literally can't do much of anything with it other than like if something breaks down, replace it, but you can't really do anything with that. And my goal is to try and keep that house. There's a great family there that's lived there for a long time. The last thing I want to do is displace them. So I'm trying to come up with some creative way that I can keep that house there and work with the commercial zone and do everything else. Quite frankly, once I get these other lots moving, then I can put some bandwidth into figuring out how to work with all the kind of different variables that are involved, considering what's going on with the zoning.
Okay, thanks. Do you think that, I'm looking at, lot 179, is that pretty much the same situation that we have with this lot? At the, I'm looking at the corner of San Francisco and Valencia Avenue.
Yeah, I don't know the details of the history of that lot, but I think it's safe to assume that
So
it
it
had
looks like
similar
one-
circumstances, right? It
And that one
was-
is already developed, I
Yeah.
believe, right?
Correct,
Okay.
and it's not unusual in this neighborhood that you have the development of non-conforming size lots, provided that they've obtained a type A COC. As the commissioners might recall, the subdivision regulations were changed in 2017. And if you have to get a conditional certificate of compliance for a substandard lot, you are not able to develop that independently. This situation is different in that they obtained a type A COC, which confirmed that it was a legally created lot despite its substandard size.
All right, not additional questions, thanks.
That it?
That's it.
So going back to the roof. So what are we looking at this time for the roof? You said that whatever was decided, I'm forgetting the term you are using. So what kind of roof have we agreed upon here?
In terms
Or
of
you are proposing at this time?
material style.
Mr. Kellen,
The
I think I
style.
can help with that, if you don't mind, Commissioner Gupta.
Yes.
So the proposed design is the gable style roof. There was discussion during the design review committee meeting about making it more hip style. The committee didn't require that. They suggested that that be considered. I think based on the testimony that we've heard today, the architect and the owner are feel that the gabled roof style is more consistent with the architectural character of the structure as a whole. And given that the design review committee did not require the gable roof, it doesn't sound like the applicant intends to change the design from the gable to hip roof. They want to maintain the gable roof.
Okay, so we are talking about gable versus hip roof.
Correct.
Okay. Does that change the height in any way?
No.
Okay, so the height still remains 1 foot 10 inches lower than what was originally proposed. Okay, so that was that question. And in terms of the ADU, since this is a attached ADU, this still, it's a ADU or it's what we call junior ADU, is that same?
Junior ADUs.
Junior ADU, okay, all right. Thank you, that's all right.
You have any questions? Okay, we'll now open public comment for item 2. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, we have nobody wishing to speak in chambers and there are no virtual hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. We'll now close public comment for item 3. Any further questions or comments from the commission? Do we have a motion?
Sure. I recommend that the planning commission approve the DR, CDP and NCUP for the county file number PLN 2023-0055 by making the required findings and adopting the conditions of approval listed in attachment A.
Thank you. That was a motion by Commissioner Ramirez and a second by Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Serrano Juan.
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion carries.
Thank you. We will now close item 2. Thank you all. Madam Clerk, please introduce item 3.
Owner Randolph Mukeda, applicant Edward C. Love, file number PLN 2020-00070. Location is Cypress Avenue, APN 037-221-020 and -030. And your project planner is Camille Leon.
Right, the project site is shown, it's 2 parcels, there's a proposed merger of the 2 on Cypress Avenue across the street from Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And as you can see, it's right at the waterfront. It's a legal conforming parcel at 5,643 square feet. It's located in the GH zone, specifically zone 2 of the geological hazard zone of the Seal Cove study area. It's located within an existing residential neighborhood, and with this lot would be pretty much built out within the area surrounded by homes, except for across the street. Access is proposed from a paved Cypress Avenue roadway. The site is relatively flat. There is a 42-inch cypress tree at the rear of the property that will be retained. These slides show that the parcel has a secondary geological trace, seismic fault trace through it, as shown in with the red line. And the county has approved a 10-foot buffer zone from that line. And you can see here that the development complies with the 10. All right, so these are the elevations of the property. The top is the front elevation. This is one of the sides. More elevations of the structure. And the project complies with the design review guidelines. It was reviewed on May 9th by the CDRC, who found that the houses similar in scale form a proportion to the neighboring homes, that the building facades are well articulated, that the walls are broken up, that the roof, shed roofs break up the massing of the home. For better compliance, the CDRC asked the applicant to incorporate a double door front entrance facing the street to better mark the entryway, frosted windows for privacy, and reduced exterior lighting, which has been added as condition. The project complies with the zoning regulations of the R1 S17. Also, it complies with the sensitive habitats component in maintaining the 42-inch cypress tree. Also, staff has added mitigation measure 2. There was an egg deck for this project, in which the mitigation measure required the applicant to do a pre-construction survey of protected species, including but not limited to the California red-legged frog, and wood rat and nesting birds and raptors prior to start of work. The project also complies with the hazard component. The LCP policy 9.10 requires that the county geologist or an independent consulting certified engineering geologist review the building and the grading permits, which has happened. Sigma Prime is the project geologist. They did a study of the project. also dug a 89-foot long by 10-foot deep fault trench to find the location of the secondary faults, which was mapped, I believe it is still approximate. And based on that, Sigma Prime concluded that there's no major trace of seal coat fault on the property. However, they indicated there's a secondary trace estimated to be as little as 10 feet west of the northwest corner of the property, requiring a 10-foot setback. And then that report was reviewed by Shires, the county's geotechnical consultant, and CSA Shires stated that a 50-foot setback should be applied to the main as well as any secondary fault traces. And the main, of course, is not on the property, but the secondary trace is. The county does allow so this kind of went back and forth for a few years. The county allows for peer review letter from a county approved third party to review the project record and submit an opinion to the county. So this was the case for this project. The applicant submitted a geologic review letter by David W. Buckley of GeoBuild in 2023, which supported a 10-foot setback from the secondary trace, which the county accepted. An initial study negative declaration was released on May 14th with a 20-day review period. Staff did receive a bunch of comments regarding biological resources. There was concern about the tree on the site that will be protected, as well as habitat for species, including the great blue heron and raptors. And staff has already explained mitigation measure 2, which is included in the conditions. The project civil and geologist, there's a lot of comments about drainage. There's a lot of concern in this area about drainage, particularly due to annual flooding when there's a lot of rain on Alton Avenue. So the project civil and geologists state that in their opinion, the proposed drainage system is an improvement over the existing conditions. There's a swale that runs through the middle of the property that takes on some of the drainage from the flooding along Alton. But also that the flooding along Alton may remain a problem and possibly less severe. And he states that the installation of a new comprehensive drainage system in the Alton Avenue right-of-way may still be necessary, but is outside of the responsibility of this owner or outside of the scale of this project, the scope of this project. The commenters, a number of them requested a meeting with DPW staff. And we have on record that DPW staff and the supervisor, former supervisor, had met with the owners relatively recently in the past and stated pretty much the same, that the project, once this parcel is developed, that the drainage in the area could be improved through project site improvements. However, if the flooding on Alton Avenue still persists, which likely it may, that there would need to be a drainage master plan that would need to be initiative led by the owners of the affected homes in the area. And that an assessment for the neighborhood drainage systems would need to be also community funded. So this shows the swale, the survey on the left shows the swale that runs through the project site. The picture next to it shows flooding along Alton at the front of the property, at the rear of the subject site. So you'll see on the next photo to the right of that, one of the project parcels outlined in blue, and sort of the path that drainage water takes from the kind of area that floods on Alton Avenue through the side property at the rear of the project site, runs along the rear property lines of the project site and the neighboring to the back, and then runs through the middle of this parcel of Alton Avenue. So the applicant and the project civil is here, who can perhaps explain this in more detail if needed. They're essentially taking the existing drainage flow that runs through the middle and moving it to the right of the home, as you can see. The original civil design on the top left showed a 1 foot wide drainage channel, which has now been increased just to be conservative and to respond to the neighbors to a 2 foot wide channel on the bottom left. So with that, staff recommends that the planning commission adopt the initial study mitigating negative declaration pursuant to CEQA, approve the merger, design review permit and CDP by making the required findings and adopting the conditions of approval. In attachment A, the architect is here, the owner is here, project civil, project geo is here as well if you have any questions.
Could you just go back a slide? Well, go back to the photographs, a few slides. Yeah, there. So I just wanted you to point out the photo that's at the lower left. There's the picket fence there on the right and the car on the left, and then there's this straight through channels. Okay, so this is the pictures from Alton Street where it floods, and that is on the edge of this house property that's behind the project. And this is where the inlet, this is my understanding, that the flooding inlet from Alton is expected to take this concrete swale to the back of that property. And then it takes a left turn from, we're looking at the photo, takes a left turn till it reaches the corner of the parcel that's the subject of this hearing. And then, well, actually,
Well, it's-
currently it takes it to the middle of that
Yeah,
parcel.
yeah.
But obviously the house there, they want to have that go down the edge of the parcel. So the idea would be to connect this concrete swale to that corner
Yeah,
and then take
giving
it
a
to,
shorter path,
and take that to
Yeah.
Cypress.
yes.
But then did you talk about where it has to go along the front of Cypress to the catch basin? I didn't pick up
No,
that
I do
part.
not.
Okay, so this is the part I'm concerned with.
Yeah.
And so I don't see the order
How it
of
then
things.
takes the water out, and this project
Yeah,
table
so-
perhaps can answer that.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask this now while you had the pictures right here to point that out to people. Okay, so let's go back to where you were and open this to questions. So do my colleagues have questions now for the plan? Nothing? So the applicant and your team can have 15 minutes.
Good morning, commissioners and staff. My name is Ed Love. I'm the architect for the project. Thank you, Camila, for a very good presentation. The house, the lot is owned by Randy Mateo, 44 years. And over these years, he's always wanted to build his dream up there. So we started on this probably 5 years ago. And they wanted a very modern house, which we did, lots of glass. It's a little unusual house. It's a reverse plan with the living areas up on the second floor. And that's quite common on the coast because people want to take advantage of the good views of the ocean. The first floor, Randy Makeda is a car guy. And it's a large garage and workshop, so he can continue working on cars as he's done probably most of his adult life. And the media room, and then upstairs is a master bedroom, the second bedroom. And the living areas, dining areas, kitchen areas, oriented towards the ocean, lots of glass. So it's a quick explanation of the house, and you have the plans there in your packet. And I can answer any questions.
Commissioners have questions? Go ahead.
So is this property, or is this construction going to be used for personal use, or is this going to be more for rental?
This will be their family home.
This is family home.
Yes,
And the second story is the living area,
yes.
basically. Okay. In one of the correspondence, there was mention that this may be kind of used for short-term rental, which I
I
don't
think
know.
so.
Okay,
Not that I know.
okay,
Of. I don't think that's the
So-
intent of it.
okay, thank you. So the workshop is uh, for what
Working on
kind of
his cars. Sabi is working on.
cars?
Yes.
For cars.
And it's all
Okay,
enclosed.
Okay,
Back to the ground.
all right, and there's a media room also
On the first floor.
on the first floor itself.
Mhm.
Okay. Um. So this is all new construction, and there will be two lots that would be merged
They will be,
because
yes.
they will be merged. Yeah. So there's a big concern about this drainage
Yes.
here. So is this flooding and drainage, has this come about only since in these last 2, 3 years when we've had storms, or has it been
I don't think so.
problem
I think it's been going on for many, many years.
for many years? Okay. But this project was started a few years ago also,
2017.
20, oh, I see, that's longer. Okay. So, but as Camille mentioned, that some of the things that are being proposed by either the other committees or the neighbors is not something that can be done on this property itself to taking care of this.
That's
drainage.
correct. Actually, what is being done as part of this project is the existing drainage ditch that runs down the middle of the lot will be replaced with a concrete ditch that will carry more water, it has more volume than presently, so there's a chance that it might actually improve the flooding situation on Alton, because it's a better solution so far.
Mhm. And then the other, thank you. The other concern that has been brought up is there's this the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve Park is right across from it. And this proposal has all windows, especially on the second floor, which are windows are going to, at night, there'll be lighting there, which may impact um, the wildlife that lives in the park there, which may have adverse effect on them. Is there something that's being taken care of in terms of providing proper window?
Well,
What do you call?
there are still windows facing, in Moss Beach, we call it the Magic Forest. And-
What is that?
That's just what we call it. That's the south end of the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. There's a trail through it.
Okay,
We live in Moss Beach, so we're very familiar.
right. No,
So
I have
it-
been to that park too. Right, yeah.
So I'm sure that there are animals living in that forest. But it's a very thick, heavy forest, so I don't think any light that would be coming out of Kata's house would affect any wildlife that happens. Habitat inside the forest.
So instead of like having clear glass windows, is there something different as an architect you propose?
We haven't so far, and of course you could use shades on the windows, and there would be drapes on them. And it would diminish it, would reduce the light.
Okay.
But
not-
it's a public
not-
road, so cars drive up and down it with headlights and everything.
And I did notice that there's solar, solar panels
Yes.
that are proposed for
Mhm.
the construction there, which would take care of whatever the electricity requirements are there. Okay. So that is all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, I got some questions. So on the plan, the latest drainage plan from, was it June or sometime? It extends this concrete swale, bringing the water from Alton out to the street and also down the frontage of the whole property, concrete swale directly to the catch basin, which then goes into the culvert and directly down onto Seal Cove Beach. And so in 2012, I think it was, the Resource Conservation District and Public Works and all were working on these pilot projects for the, what's this, is area of special biological significance, the watershed that goes into the marine reserve and to reduce pollutants that's carried in with the stormwater. And this section, the frontage of this property, which is referred to, I think, as a swale, or it is a bioswale. It is, and I sent pictures to Camille. I don't know if she shared those
Yes, I.
with you, but I didn't see them in the. So, it appears that the whole plan to put a concrete swale along the frontage of this property was unaware of this stormwater pollution reduction feature that is there under the weeds. So, and to put in a concrete swale to deliver the water as fastly as possible to the beaches is, so I'm very concerned about this. I'm opposed to that concept on the surface, and I would certainly need to hear from the state who set up these regulations, or our DPW, Julie Casagrande, on how the pilot project was assessed, whether this was helpful, whether they want to keep it or give it up. So are you willing to just bring your new swale to Cypress and forego this concrete swale going along the frontage? That would be what I would ask for. Can maybe the civil engineer speak to this, or what is the plan?
Just, I'll make a quick statement and then Joe just.
Okay.
can speak to them. I saw the photographs of the swale, the bioswale that was installed in 2012, I think.
Yes.
2012.
Yes.
And bioswales are great, and they serve a very good purpose. They slow the water down. They take pollutants out of it. Silt up very often because the water goes so slow. The bioswale could stay as it is, and it's full of grass now. I never knew it was a built bioswale. This looks like a ditch full of grass. But that slows down the water coming from Alton. And will it back up and, contribute to the flooding? Maybe, I don't know. If the concrete ditch or the concrete drainage course would be there, the water would go through much faster and hold much more water. So it's kind of a choice. There's an option there. And Charlie.
Thank you.
I'm Charlie Kissick with Sigma Prime Geosciences. we've been working on this job for several years now and have had, I don't know how many versions of the drainage plan, I've lost count. And the concrete swale is only arrived with the very last version. Before that, that's what the natural swale or the engineered swale, bioswale was always there, but the neighbors' concerns with the flooding on Alton Avenue and discussions with the county, Public Works and Camille and everybody else just said, well, we've got to do something about that flooding and really, and so the keeping the bioswale there was essentially rejected and we were directed to put in the concrete swale, which it will alleviate the chance of flooding. Just by definition, that's what concrete swales do. They speed up the flow of water. And, you know, in most cases, you don't want to have a concrete creek. But that's if you're starting a new development in an area where you have the opportunity to create a nice natural stream bed. But that's not really, given the current conditions along Alton and the drainage situation there on Alton, that's really not a very good option to try to keep it as natural as you can. Because there's flooding and the neighbors are being impacted by that. So we need to, maybe someday a storm drain system with pipes and all to alleviate the flooding on Alton could be installed. And part of that project would be, okay, now we can remove this concrete swale along Cypress as well, because it won't be taking very much water anymore. So as it stands right now, the concrete swale is really the best option considering all the drainage problems upstream.
So this makes it sound as though it's just an aesthetic objection, which it is not. The neg deck and staff report don't mention anything about this trade-off. I think this is a major trade-off, and that the laws about the ASBS and these and slowing this water and treating this water, and they monitored it, and none of this has been discussed. And I'm not willing to approve that until I have the experts and that side of the story. Before I let you go, I have a couple other things, or do you have any more to offer about the drainage?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the ocean plan, which regulates the area of special biological significance, it doesn't require that every new house come in with a stormwater treatment system. What it does do is it regulates erosion control during construction, where we have to monitor construction sites on a weekly basis to make sure the erosion control measures are in place. And also, it prohibits any new outlets to the ocean. So any existing outlets can remain. So in terms of requiring stormwater treatment for every new house, that isn't one of the rules of the ocean plan. And that's not something we're implementing consistently or at all, unless it's a provision C3 project, like say for a subdivision or multiple unit development where impervious surface is 5,000 square feet or more, then that triggers stormwater treatment. But in a sense, this project is just basically bettering the existing drainage pathway to alleviate the flooding situation, hopefully slightly in the area.
Chair
Okay.
Ketchum, just Camille, while you're up there, could you please confirm that the Department of Public Works is aware and has approved the replacement of the vegetated swale that was installed with the concrete swale currently proposed?
They have reviewed the project and it's on site.
It's
So,
all on site,
yeah,
so it,
it's a replacement of one on site. It's just moving it further to the left.
Was it the people at DPW that came on board after 2012? I mean, was it Julie Casagrande's group? It just seems as though this has been forgotten. And it was planted with native grasses and sedges and rushes, so that would read as you know, if you, and this time of year, obviously, it looks just messy. Although, well,
So you're talking about the swell within Cypress, not the swell that was.
Is there a difference? Sorry to jump
is
in.
this concrete swale, this new extension, going to be a separate from the existing swale that's along the road?
Yes,
It doesn't appear that on the plans.
I'm sorry, there's a concrete swell on site, which I may be confusing with the concrete swell on the.
I could see my plan, as I recall, the property line is. Right on or right on the edge of pavement or. In the pavement of the street, that's common on Cypress, a lot of the property lines are actually out in the paved part of the street. And so if there's a swale, it's on the private property, whether it's a bioswale or a concrete swale. And that plan doesn't show it very clearly. Well,
The existing
not really.
swale
Yeah.
is the one where you're gonna put your concretes, right?
Right, it's gonna
Not
follow the
making-
same drainage path.
Okay,
yes.
so that's the,
And I was going to mention, you know. I'm doing this design based on. Direction from others, basically. And. I would have not a problem putting the bioswale back, except for the fact that that could exacerbate or keep the flooding issues upstream in place. In which case I would be concerned of a lawsuit because they say, well, you shouldn't have done that. And it was still being flooded. But if I put the concrete swale in, it wouldn't really have a basis because I would have done everything possible. Or feasible anyway, to alleviate the flooding, but if I don't do that, then I'd be open to some litigation possibly, so just want to mention that.
so currently the concrete swale installed at 151 Arval, no, not Arval, what's the street? Okay, we've got the picture there, so you can see it coming directly into the property off the street. This is about this deep, this wide, and the whole area is pretty much level. And it doesn't drain very well. That even doesn't drain very well. And then it takes a left and then it takes a right and it goes into the weeds across the middle of this parcel. It's the subject of our discussion today. And okay, so that's halfway there. Now, and then it's just going through the weeds, which apparently aren't maintained, and the residents in the area go over and clear it. And so it will flow and then it goes into this existing bioswale. And it, even when they've taken care of the weeds and all, it doesn't flow very well. And so it's not just clear how, no matter what you do on this property that's downstream, whether you're going to get that water off of Arval. If you stand on, is that the right name of the street? No, Alton, sorry. If you stand there, it's the street, it's a bowl. And even to get up onto their property and into this thing, it almost looks that you got to have a substantial puddle there before it'll even flow into that channel. So, okay. And then if you get switching over to, if you're standing on Cypress, looking at the front of your project with a 3-car garage, almost half that is going to just have to culvert under the driveway. So you've already lost that part of the bioswale. Can't you just leave the rest? I just don't see why, if it's not flowing very well anyway, how this much larger swale at that last end coming up to the,
We look for more pervious options, maybe like a pervious surface that allows for quicker runoff, but allows some amount of filtration. Yeah.
the photos of the construction of the work in 2012 of the swale, they dug out the swale. They dug down deep. They put a drain pipe in the bottom. They put sand and gravel over it and tarp over it. So the water is supposed to be slowed down and percolate in, and then there's a drain pipe at the bottom. Are you just gonna be covering that all up? With it just, without doing any studies, you know, and acknowledge that this area on the street behind is got a drainage problem, and nobody seems to want to fork up and address it.
Well, Neil had a good idea, and if we see the problem with these bioswales and grassy swales is the grass and all the vegetation slows the water down quite a bit. But maybe a compromise would be pervious concrete. The water goes through that pretty quickly, and it gets down into the system below with drain rock and to the pipe. So, and it has a much higher, lower friction that impedes flow, so the water will still travel fairly quickly, more so than it would in the grassy swale.
This is frog habitat. It's just no mention in here of the sensitive habitat values. Except, you know, in your in the neg deck about, you know, first you gotta check for frogs, you know, this is their environment and it's just being ignored. Oh, we don't, I gotta put a concrete thing in here. I just
It was an unauthorized drainage ditch through the property. There is a
That was.
pre-construction survey, so there will be not part, there will be properly before construction. They'll find it.
I have no objection to the swale going through the property, bringing the water to Cypress. It's the bioswale on Cypress that I object to turning that into a concrete ditch.
My view is this test project, it was on site, it runs through this private property.
That's the understanding, Camille. And
I've got all the background on this.
Oh.
I went to the TAC meeting that was on the TAC, but you know, and
Could we look into keeping that portion green and keeping the other portion faster? We can kind of see how it goes.
all you would be doing is moving the earthen ditch from the middle of the property over to a concrete swale on the edge of the property. In both cases, delivering whatever runoff can make it its way from Alton over to Cypress, and then just leave it at that. If at that point, if it's backed up too much, it'll flood on Cypress, and I'm gonna figure out what to do there. But you'll see whether it's having any effect at all on Alton.
I'll propose a potential solution here. I think we could add a condition intended to address this that requires a final drainage plan to be reviewed by the director of the department. That drainage plan will have two objectives. Number one will be to minimize flooding on Alton, and number two will be to preserve the integrity of the bioswale installed by the Department of Public Works, so that we have the engineers take a harder look at this and come back with a proposal that provides the expedient drainage of Alton through the backs of the property, but that maintains a vegetated drainage swale along Cypress.
Okay. Is so that's proposed condition of approval?
That's
to
a
be added to-
new
okay,
proposed
to
condition
get
of
to that
approval.
point. Okay. Thank you. Okay, just a couple other things before y'all sit down. I wanted to ask about the window glass, the extensive window glass. So I'm just concerned, I know the county has no regulations to protect birds from bird strikes. I don't know how aware you are of the fatality rates. And if you're living there, no doubt you'll hear them hitting the glass and you'll see you'll have to clean the window. There are glass treatments, unintrusive treatments, so that, because bird perceive, they don't perceive windows. They think, oh, I can fly through here. But there are treatments you can put on the glass that will clue them into they shouldn't fly into it. And so I would encourage you to look into this. The location of the house along the flyway, along next to the forest, and that with the large expanse of windows, I would imagine there'd be substantial fatalities, bird fatalities there, and also the light emanating from the windows. It wasn't clear. I saw the lighting plan in the ceilings of the rooms and these lovely windows and the view you're going to have. But is there any provision or plan to have curtains in the nighttime when you're just in your room and all the lights are on, that you can close the curtains or the shades so that it doesn't disturb the wildlife? I would just. I don't suppose we could impose anything like that, but I'm just trying to encourage you to be aware of these.
Property.
Mm.
This is the trailer park, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I had a problem with you from day one. When I bought these two properties, two
Well,
lots,
maybe I answered wrong. Did you say I'm from where?
trailer park in the city.
Pillar Ridge?
Anyway, those lots, when I bought it, there were no houses on that side of the block. There were 6 lots. They're all level. There's no water problem. I bought the 2 on the end. And they dug the swell, which is not a natural swell. It's just a drainage that they put in from Alton. Okay, there was never any cypress drainage issue. It was only after they dug the trench down the middle of my 2 lots. So for starters, I don't understand why it's my responsibility to put in all this concrete to take care of a problem that's not even on my side of the block. You wouldn't even be talking about this if you guys took care of your own problem on that side, right?
I don't understand how this
They're
is my
putting-
fault. I had
Alton-
nothing to do
Alton
with
is
this.
Putting their problem onto me, and I've agreed to go ahead and put that concrete drainage to the side, down Cypress, alleviate the water issue on Alton. It's really not my responsibility to take care of their problem, right?
Yes, Chair Ketchum, if I might try and bring the conversation back. So the issue with the proposed drainage scheme that's been identified is that the new concrete swale is in a location where the county has previously installed a bioswale for purposes of water quality protection.
I was never, nobody ever asked permission to dig that swell. For me, I was never even aware of it.
Okay,
Until after it was there.
okay, understood.
I
We
think
are,
it may be confusing the ditch that goes through the middle of his property with the swell that goes along the edge of Cypress.
that could be. So
That
there's.
was done by the cabinets.
So yes, there's the swale that runs through the middle of your property, and that's not the swale we're speaking of. This bioswale that I'm speaking of is the one that runs along Cypress.
Correct. But what we would be doing is basically allowing the water to drain down from Alton, down the side,
Right.
and into that same bioswale that is there now existing.
Except that the current proposal proposes to replace the bioswale with a concrete channel. And that's therefore why we are recommending a condition that requires a final drainage plan that seeks to preserve the permeability of that bioswale along Cypress.
The swell that we're proposing to put in will be the same capacity or larger than the existing drainage that's, going from Alton along the,
Right now, the dirt swale that goes down through the center of Makeda's property goes into the bioswale at about the midpoint of that bioswale. Now, if the swale to the east from where it enters it in the center spot, if that was concrete with pervious concrete at the bottom, and the other the bioswale that is existing there now stays, it'll be basically the same condition that it is now as far as the flooding from all that.
Well, I thought we had finished the drainage discussion and I was talking about the windows and the light from the windows and the
Oh, right.
birds and the bird strikes. And I know this is not a,
that I would put up for grapes or.
so you will have that available so that you can close those at night? Okay, thank you. That's, well, good. Yeah, I mean, it's lovely to look out in the daytime and then also to consider in the type of glass that you install, consider options which would help to prevent bird strikes in the daytime. And that would be incorporated in the panel of glass.
Cleaning dead birds at my front yard.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the only point I wanted to make. Thank you very much. So, oh, I just wanted to say that the tall dead weeds on the parcel are a real fire hazard. They're over 6 feet tall. There's poison hemlock and bristly ox tongue gone to seed. As a habitat restoration person, it just stunning. But anyhow, I just would suggest that because those weeds are they're classified by the state as noxious weeds and they're in your topsoil now. Those weed seeds, so it's to your benefit to maintain that so they don't go to seed. And so I just wanted to mention that. And plus it is a fire hazard. Thank you. So where were we? Is this anybody else questions for the applicant or anything? Okay, public comment. You open public comment now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you wish to speak in chambers, the speaker slips are located in the ante room. So it looks like we will have 2 speakers in chambers. There is 1 speaker on Zoom, so I'll probably call on them first. I will call on Seth. You will have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Seth Weil. I live at 140 Cypress Avenue, which is adjacent to the property. And I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposed plan. Excuse my voice, I'm recovering from a cold, so it's a bit raspy. To start, I want to mention how difficult this process has been. Despite living here for 8 years, neither the owner nor the architect has even introduced themselves to us, let alone engaged us in their planning. In fact, the owner seems intent on getting the house he wants, specifically one with an enormous garage workshop with little consideration for the neighbors in the neighborhood. There are many issues with the plan, but given my limited time, I can only briefly speak on 2 critical issues, being the design of the home and the proposed drainage solution. Regarding drainage, contrary to what is claimed in their drainage report, this large trench is often inadequate to handle our winter storms, and at least once a year, a significant part of the lot is flooded. The actual lot floods itself. Fortunately, our property has never been impacted given our distance from the swale, but that will almost certainly change with the proposal to move it within 7 feet of our home. The revised swale proposal is still based on analysis that underestimates the amount and behavior of rainwater and does not account for complicating factors such as the perpendicular flow of water from Cypress Avenue that effectively restricts and is restricted by drainage from the property. That will cause localized flooding, which then will impact our property. Additionally, the property is currently covered by vegetation year-round and absorbs a tremendous amount of rain and drainage water. During the first heavy storms of winter, the lot is often able to absorb so much rainwater that none flows to Cypress Avenue and onto the beach. This plan eliminates this absorption and will add significantly to water flowing down the culvert that leads directly to the beach and would worsen the already devastating erosion that's occurring every single winter. Given the incomplete analysis and risk to the neighboring homes and the beach below, I ask that the committee reject the plan until a county-endorsed drainage solution is developed that would inform the requirements of the swale. Secondly, regarding the design of the home, we raised several concerns at the design review meeting that were largely dismissed in error. As such, I don't believe the board's endorsement was made correctly and asked this committee to assess certain design elements themselves, specifically the impact of views of the existing homes and the size and prominence of the garage and its contrast to the character of the neighborhood. The proposed house will be built 10 feet from our home, with roof lines just several feet away. It would be so close and so wide that would nearly eliminate our south-facing light and expansive views. The voting members of the board explicitly stated that impacted views are not considered in the review, which is an error according to the design standard and the neg deck form. Additionally, the county planner has repeatedly stated in the neg deck and in their response to our objections that the project would have, quote, less than significant impact to views from existing residential areas. This is obviously and completely wrong, as the project would result in the near total loss of ocean views, and the project fails to make any meaningful effort to, quote, minimize the effect of views on neighboring houses, end quote, as required by the county design standards. Lastly, as is apparent from the project drawings, the proposed 2-bedroom home would have a 3-car garage. Nothing about this house or the property necessitates a 3-car garage, so the design is based on the owner's desire for what is essentially a car shop. Not only is this excessive for a house of that size, but it has the effect of making it the dominant feature of the home. It is 30 feet long, which is half the length of the entire house. Worse yet, the 3-car garage and its even longer span of driveway faces Cypress Avenue and the Fitzgerald Reserve, and is set back the minimum of 20 feet. No matter how attractive the doors, the garage is objectively the dominant feature of the house, which is a violation of the community design standards, which states, quote, avoid making the garage the dominant feature as seen from the street, end quote. This oversized 30-foot span of garage is completely out of character with the neighborhood. No other houses in the neighborhood have 3-car garages, and very few are set so close to the street. This is especially important given the special nature of Seal Cove and Cypress Avenue in particular. The location of the proposed house is at the very entrance to the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve and Seal Cove Beach. Hundreds, if not thousands, of visitors will pass this house each month to visit the extraordinary beauty here. The houses here are part of the experience for many people, and the unnecessarily outsized, imposing garage is an affront to the character of the neighborhood and the experience of those that come here. Again, I ask that the board not approve this plan until a county-endorsed drainage plan is developed. Reasonable efforts are made to reduce the impact to existing views, and the design is brought in line with the character of the neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I will now call Diane Kavanaugh in chambers.
Thank you for this opportunity to address you today. As stated, my name is Diane Kavanaugh. I'm the property owner at 151 Alton, the property directly behind the proposed project site. There are a few things I want to clarify that were stated earlier that are incorrect. The Kavanaughs did not dig the ditch. We bought the property 9 years ago. The infrastructure was there. We do, when Alton floods up to a depth of 18 inches at the base of our driveway, go out and try to move the water from Alton down to the storm drain on Cypress. I object to the issuance of the building permits at this time, as the development plans don't properly address or resolve the concerns regarding the stormwater. San Mateo County Planner has frivolously declared that the lack of planning and infrastructure by the county to be a neighbor's issue. None of us who are property owners developed the infrastructure plan for the area, nor did we design the storm or flood mitigation plan. Nor did we place a single storm drain at an elevation that actually prevents proper water flow. Nor did we allow continued permitting for projects that block the natural flow of stormwater. All of these deficits, to Mr. Makeda's point, are the results of improper infrastructure planning and hastily made decisions. Now there's a new development proposed that is going to make the problem worse. At what point of time do we solve the problem as opposed to exacerbating it? I acknowledge that a revision was made to the applicant's plan since the design review to move the concrete swale or to make it a concrete swale, but it's not equivalent to what's there today. If they had taken a tape measure, they would see that that ditch is about in the middle of the property, about 4 feet wide and about 12 to 18 inches depth, being replaced by a concrete ditch, which is narrower and shallower. It's not the same. Additionally, the water right now would go up to Cypress, make another left-hand turn because water obeys left and right-hand turns so well, and go directly into the storm drain. I don't think this plan, to Ms. Ketchum's point, has been properly reviewed by all of the agencies involved. Specifically, the California State Water Board, Office of Sustainability, and the Bay Area Regional Water Quality District, who have declared the area, as mentioned, a special biologic concern. The bioswale mitigation was put in place to slow the water movement, to remove particulates from the stormwater before it enters the ocean. Concreting that over is not going to solve that problem that it was originally intended. I'm surprised by the lack of knowledge that swale existed, because until recently, there was actually a placard in front of Mr. Makeda's property stating the purpose of that. It mysteriously disappeared about a month before he came for the design review committee. It was moved. Magic happens. Approving this project at this time without the due diligence to gain support from all the concerned agencies leaves this project open to corrections afterwards. It's irresponsible to move the permitting forward without knowing the proposed solution is acceptable. This may be the correct solution, but without knowing that in advance and ramrodding this through, it leaves the county negligent in providing for proper planning for this area. I urge you to take the necessary time to gather agreement rather than approving a proposal that is unreviewed, underinformed, and doesn't have full consent from all of the agencies. The neg deck is incomplete as stated, and such an agreement should not be guaranteed acceptance until there is full understanding. I invite you to observe this area in winter. Ms. Ketchum visited the area. I'm not sure I've seen any of the rest of you in the neighborhood. Come after 2 or 3 storms. Come to my front door. Please bring your boots. You won't be able to get there. Come on trash day when I have to place my garbage cans in the center of Alton in order for the trash to be picked up, because Recology won't walk through the water to the driveway to get my garbage cans. Make good decisions. You can't make good decisions if you're not informed. I urge you to take the time to investigate this issue.
Thank you. I will call on our last speaker, Michelle Well.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Michelle Weil, and I live next door to the proposed development. I'm here today to express my deep concerns regarding this project and to respectfully request that you deny the coastal development permit. There are significant safety and community issues that I would like to address, starting with the pressing concern, the active earthquake fault. The proposed home is located in the Seal Cove neighborhood, as you know, which is the site of a major earthquake fault with the potential to cause an earthquake of magnitude 7 or higher. There's a 6% chance that will happen in the next 20 years. The project geologist, Sigma Prime, trenched the property in 2016 and found evidence of a fault running directly under the southwest corner of the lot. In most cases, this would be the end of the project, full stop, as evidenced by the many vacant lots in the area that are unbuildable. There are homes in the neighborhood that are off kilter and leaning, foundations that have been abandoned, and roads such as Ocean Boulevard that have been permanently closed due to the sinking and erosion caused by this fault. Sigma Prime's handling of this issue has been inconsistent and raises serious doubts about their conclusions. In their initial study dated June 2020, they dismissed the fault as secondary, claiming it only requires a 10-foot setback. They stated, and I quote, "Based on our studies, there is no major trace of the Seal Cove fault on the property. However, there is a minor trace that should require a 10-foot offset. The main trace is estimated to be as little as 10 feet west of the south, or to the southwest corner of the property, as shown in Figure 6. And I'd like to call your attention to these figures. Figure 6 is in the packet. The county had a peer reviewer, County Shires, evaluate the report and findings, stating, "We understand that the project geologist presents an opinion that the main trace of the Seal Cove fault bends around the subject property, as represented by a green dotted line in the Figure 6. However, we note that a straight line interpolation between the two presented locations of the Seal Cove fault matches the exact location and orientation of the fault trace described in Sigma Prime's investigation. To be clear, there are two known locations of the primary fault, one about 100 feet to the north, the other about 300 feet to the south, and drawing a straight line between them crosses the exact spot where the fault rupture was found on the subject property." Cotton Shires went on, we find that a 10-foot setback from active faults for habitual structures as recommended by the project geologist is below the standard of practice in the Bay Area. They further emphasized that the identified fault trace poses a serious hazard to the proposed development and stated that they would not recommend approving a setback below the standard, which based on their experience is 25 feet or greater, and in most cases 50 feet, unless there's compelling technical evidence to justify a reduction. In Sigma Prime's response letter from November 2020, they maintained that the fault on the property was secondary and significantly revised their estimate of the main fault's location to move it further away from the property. They said, given our findings, a setback of 35 feet, which coincides with the 10-foot setback from the secondary trace, is appropriate. And yet, in their most recent letter from April 2022, Sigma Prime redrew their map, stating that the main trace of the fault is mapped more than 50 feet from the proposed location. You can see that in this. The steady increase in the estimated distance of the main fault in each subsequent letter seems less like an evolving scientific understanding and more like an attempt to accommodate the project's goals, regardless of the underlying risks. If the fault's location can be moved at will, how can we trust that the site is safe for development? Additionally, a third-party tiebreaker letter from EcoGeoBuild claims that the main trace is, quote, about 40 feet or more west of the secondary trace, but provides no concrete evidence to support this. This vague assertion does not counter the serious findings and recommendations from the county's peer review. The inconsistencies in Sigma Prime's reports, coupled with the expert recommendations of the county's peer reviewers, indicate that this site is simply not safe for development. The risk is too high and the consequences too severe for us to take such a chance. Sigma Prime stated that the only way to identify the location of the main trace is to trench along Cypress Avenue to the end of the street. I propose that the Planning Commission deny the permit until we can conclusively determine the location of the fault before building a project that could risk not only the proposed development, but that of adjacent homes, including my own, whose roof lines would come within 5 feet of this project. I know I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to speak to the view concerns. The Design Review Committee failed to follow their charter here that says view preservation is important. This project would completely block the view from my existing home with a 28-foot wall about exactly 10 feet away from my home. And, you know, I heard about the drainage issues. In conclusion, the proposed project poses significant risks due to its location of an active earthquake fault, disregards community concerns over view preservation, is out of scale with the neighborhood, and will negatively impact drainage. I urge you to consider these serious concerns and deny the permit for this project. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Chair, we have no more.
Should I say all that again? My colleagues, do you have any further comments or questions?
Well,
the
comments,
direct-
if you don't mind. Actually, yeah, do you want to address any of the comments that come up?
Sure, I'll try to do so briefly and then respond to any more detailed questions you may have. First, regarding the geologic hazards, it's clear the Seal Cove neighborhood is a geologically hazardous area. These hazards don't generally appear on a parcel by parcel basis, although there are certainly site specific considerations that need to be taken into account. The fact that this neighborhood is geologically unstable is not new. It's something that the county's been dealing with for many years. We strive to review this issue in, a great detail to ensure the safety of the future residents. But at the end of the day, we rely on the technical experts who are experts in the field of this. And that detailed analysis has resulted in our recommendation of approval today. So we feel that the issue has been looked at in sufficient detail, and that as conditioned, we've appropriately addressed the hazards. With regard to the drainage, I stand by my recommendation that we add an additional condition, require that a final drainage plan be reviewed for the department's, be prepared for the department's review and approval. The objective of that plan is twofold: to minimize the drainage occurring along Alton while still preserving water quality protections provided by the bioswale along Cypress Avenue. Finally, with regard to the design issues that have been raised, we place a lot of faith in our design review committee to effectively implement those design review considerations. And we believe that they have appropriately done so, which is why we have recommended approval of the design review permit. So that concludes my response. I'm happy to address it. Any further details you'd like me to?
Thank you. And thank you for touching on all those areas. So yeah, we have a lot of issues obviously with this, and we've had other situations similar to this in the past. To me, the question of the drainage, I think the whole area, it's problematic from everything that we've heard and from all the reports. The problem I have is that I don't think we can impose on one, owner to try to resolve the area for the entire area. But we do require that within their lot, they resolve the issues and not create more problems to the area. So based on what I see on the report, I think it addresses a lot of that. And, with the other thing that we mentioned about the bioswale and all that, if we add what we talked about earlier, I think it will further improve the situation. The design review approved the project, and as you said, I think we give them a lot of sway on what they decide. I can count on maybe 1 or 2 times that we went against their desires, and in general, I think it's a good design. I particularly like it. So that's my take for this. So I'll let the other commissioners have a crack at it.
I have a question for the applicant owner. So, so there's a large garage. Is that for storing some fancy cars? Or is that for, uh, for, maintaining or, working on other people's cars?
I don't think it's, you're sort of referring to a commercial car repair situation in capacity. No, Mr. Makeda, his hobby is working on cars, and the large garage and workshop is to accommodate that.
Okay. Where I'm coming from is, are there going to be extra cars parked on the street? Because there are other people bringing their cars in for Mr. McKay to be working on the cars?
Sorry, what was the question?
My question is, are there going to be cars you will be working on which
No,
would be parked
it's
on the
just-
street?
It's just a 3-car garage, like in any house, to store 3 cars, keep them out of the salt air.
Okay,
It's not for working on them or commercial shop or anything like that. It's just for storage.
no,
Keep 'em
what you
inside.
do in the garage, of course, it's your personal garage. But are there going to be extra cars parked out in the garage, outside on the street?
They would be, in the garages, that's because of the salt, then the closeness to the ocean just will destroy the car in
Of course.
10 years.
Okay. So that's
Just
the
keep 'em
purpose
inside.
of this bigger garage.
Well, 3 cars.
Hmm.
Just to
Okay,
keep them inside.
okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is my only question.
Any thoughts for you?
My comments are, I like your design of your house. I think it's a good design. I think it's a high design. And I'm in support of the design for this project. The earthquake problem, for the most part, is being borne by the owner and not the neighborhood. There are designs that could impact, there could be infrastructure that, like if a natural gas line crossed that, could affect the neighborhood, but the risk really is being borne by the applicant. I think they're fully aware of the risk he's taking with his property, and that's theirs to choose and to mitigate on their own. The water issue is always a tricky thing because you don't want to have a design that makes the condition worse than it already is. And you want to make it better for the property and at the same time for the neighborhood, because you can't suddenly vacate the water on your property and flood somebody else's. And for the most part, I leave that to the experts who know much more than I do. I think what Lisa was proposing will get us there. You're better familiar with the neighborhood and not, if I don't understand that correctly, please inform me so I can make a better vote. Those are my comments.
Else? Do we have a motion?
Motion that planning commission adopt the initial study mitigated neg debt and approve the design review permit, coastal development permit, and merger for county file number PLN 2020-00070 by making the required findings and adopting the conditions of the approval listed in attachment A.
With the added condition.
Yeah.
Commissioner Serrano Kwan, did you intend to add the additional condition that I suggested regarding a final drainage plan?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you amend your motion accordingly.
Yes.
So we have a motion to approve based on the conditions and findings in attachment A with the addition of a condition requiring a final drainage plan to be reviewed and approved by the department director as previously described.
Right.
I think you're looking for a second at this point.
Second.
Thank you. That was a motion by Commissioner Serrano Juan and a second by Commissioner Ramirez. Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Hanson,
Aye.
Commissioner Serrano Juan.
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Aye.
Chair Ketchum.
Aye.
Thank you, Chair. Motion carries.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. We will now close item 3 and move on to items 4 through 6 from the director.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kitchen. As far as correspondence goes, you may have noticed that there was correspondence to the commissioners included on the website. This is regarding the matter that I think has been brought to your attention before regarding the use of story poles in the Coastside Design Review District. The person who sent the email feels strongly that story poles are an important measure to assess compliance with the design review standards. The issue that we've run into at the staff level is that it's not required by regulation. They're costly and they often can be constructed in a haphazard manner that can pose some risks, and they're frequently left standing for long periods of time. And given those factors, we have allowed applicants with some flexibility in alternative ways of demonstrating compliance with the design review standards. For example, by providing at-scale models or providing visual simulations. This is a hot topic for the design review committee. In fact, they will be discussing it at their upcoming meeting. And so right now we are still in conversation with the committee and the community about how to best resolve this issue. There is the possibility that we would move forward and recommend that we require story poles and amend our regulations to establish such a requirement. Alternatively, we could conclude that providing applicants with a range of options to demonstrate compliance is something that we want to maintain. So as I said, those discussions are ongoing. I will keep you posted on how they evolve and be happy to take your input if you'd like to provide it.
I have a question. Is it cost effective to put story poles up?
I think you get different answers depending on people's different opinions. I think some people believe that it's really the only way to effectively demonstrate the impact of a project. So although it might cost more than other alternatives, it is a better alternative. Whereas I think you'll also have people who have experienced either installing story poles themselves or watching their neighbor do it who feel differently and feel that that's an antiquated way of going about it. So wide variety of opinions.
Yeah, I just feel it should be like clearly stated so people know what to expect.
That's where we hope to get to.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Absolutely.
There's another benefit to the story poles in that people realize This isn't about 100 feet or 300 feet notices or anything. This is like, oh my God, look at those story poles. What's going on here? And they look into it and then they have an opportunity to comment in a timely way.
That is very valid point. I think it does enhance kind of notification of the community of what's coming. And should, the committee decide to not make it a regulatory requirement, maybe there would be some alternative noticing provisions they could adopt instead. So appreciate the feedback on that.
Yeah, maybe they could be just less elaborate, but just still kind of give you a sense from standing here or standing there. I mean, they did story poles for Big Wave.
Right.
And it was a real eye opener.
Right.
And the buildings are smaller now, I think.
Right.
That are proposed. Yeah.
I think the story poles in general, they work if you do them sometime in the summer. Because once you get to the winter, with the storms and stuff like that, it's pretty hard to keep them up because you're not really securing anything down. Yeah.
And
So
that
it's
I
kinda
think
like
is,
just-
the challenge with the less elaborate means a little less structurally sound.
Yeah.
But, with the timing issue, of course, we don't want to wait a full year for somebody to get their design review decision made. So certainly challenges and desires on both sides. So luckily, we don't have to come to a solution today, but you can know that it's being carefully considered, and we will be pleased to present you the results of those discussions. It's okay with you. I'll move on to the next item regarding our next meeting. We don't have a study session proposed. We have one item which I have inquired about postponing in the interest of asking you to come in for one single item. The issue we've run into is it's a proposed agricultural preserve in Williamson Act contract. And the applicant strongly desires to get that in place before the conclusion of the calendar year. So the tax change can take effect in 2025. So given that time constraint, we will be proceeding with the meeting. And
It sure would be good in these situations, we could do a Zoom meeting.
it sure would be nice. Unfortunately, I think the updates to the Brown Act are prohibitive in that regard. So yes, I apologize for asking you to come in for one item. Moving on to the director's report. I wanted to remind the commissioners that we've got 3 items on the October 8th agenda. I think I brought this up at the last meeting. It's a new Williamson Act contract for property in San Gregorio. And I note that this Williamson Act contract that will be going to the board on October 8th, it didn't have to come to the Planning Commission first, like the one I was just talking about, because it is within an agricultural preserve. Okay, so in order to qualify for a Williamson Act, your property must be located in an agricultural preserve. The project that will be coming forward to you on October 9th is not currently in an agricultural preserve, and the establishment of a new agricultural preserve has been delegated to the Planning Commission regulations. The other 2 items that will be going to the board on October 8th include the code reorganization that you recommended approval of. This is the renumbering, so it can be posted on the Muni Law webpage, and also the appeal of the Woodland School conditional use permit. 2 other items that I'll report to you today. One is that the Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO, recently approved the extension of Community Services Area 11 in Pescadero to include the high school and fire station project. So those projects are moving forward. This was an important step in the process to enable those projects to proceed. So thanks to LAFCO for that decision. And then finally, Staff continues to work on the housing element update. I think I informed the commission previously that after receiving their most recent comment letter, we made a request to work collaboratively with HCD staff on a periodic basis to work through each of the issues. And so we actually have our third meeting with them in the series of meetings we've established to try and get to approval of the housing element. Those meetings are going well, and I'm optimistic that we'll be able to complete the process before the end of the calendar year. I'll keep you posted as things move along. And with that, I'll turn to council, see if they have any legal updates. No, that concludes my director's report.
Any questions or comments?
I want to apologize everybody for stepping out. My mom's having health issues. I'm in that part of my life. And there was a call from the unit where she was. And I'm sorry.
Sorry to hear.
She's okay, but
Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.